We continue on this market sell-off today. We're down off the lows, actually, a little bit, but we're still down 399 points on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We've talked about the uncertainty we see over trade, but don't forget about Brexit and the uncertainty in the UK. Theresa May fighting to keep her job. She's told critics getting rid of her won't make delivering Brexit any easier. Analysis on this now, former British Parliament member John Browne. All right, John, always good to see you. This no confidence vote we keep hearing about.
Great pleasure.
We keep hearing this no confidence vote may happen. I guess they need 48 votes, and it's unclear if they're going to get to 48. What do you think happens?
Yes, you're quite right. 48 votes would trigger a vote of no confidence within the party, not within the parliament, which would mean a general election, but just within the party so that they could change leaders and therefore Prime Minister. People are very upset because Prime Minister Theresa May has negotiated in secret a deal which is greatly beneficial to big corporate interests, but totally against the interests of the British people in general, and totally betrayed the Brexit referendum. And she's now going around making misleading statements to cover it, like saying it's in the interest, big business wants it. But of course, big business is a small percentage of the businesses of Britain, of the small businesses, which employ 60% of the working people in the country. And also she makes weasel words like, of course, Britain will still have laws, regulations and its borders. She forgets to mention that those will be the laws, regulations and open borders of the Euro-Soviet. And so people are very upset. Even some of the Ramonas or Remainers are upset because we will end up being in the European Union in name and regulations and laws and overrule, but no seat on the board.
Right.
And this is desperate. It's desperate. This is England's or Britain's last chance of a peaceful exit from the Euro-Soviet by peaceful means.
Well, either
and I
way,
just hope.
Either way, the UK is getting out of the European Union. To your point, if there's no deal in place, it would be, you know, you're out, but you're trying to be still part of Europe. I guess that's where these, where people like you are not happy with her. Now, the other side of it, if you look at markets, we're selling off a lot today, not necessarily because of this, but in general, if you're not giving in or catering to the interests of big business, don't you risk a larger financial market impact? And how do you kind of balance the two if you're Britain here?
Well, in Britain's case, the main interest of the people who've expressed their absolute definite view to get out are being betrayed.
No, I know.
Big business, of course, is important. But it's the people that you're talking politics, not just big business. And this is the problem of favouring just big business over the people. That's why people are so angry.
I guess I'm asking,
if you look
John,
at the markets,
I guess what I'm asking is, if you do that, if it is a hard Brexit, or you do kind of break a little bit, you know, harder than maybe Theresa May wants, is there a risk to that the people who voted for it may end up being the people that suffer in an economy that doesn't do as well?
Well, Colin, you're absolutely right. People will suffer tremendously. They're already suffering, and it's being hidden by increasing debt of being members of the Euro-Soviet. For example, trade deals that Britain negotiates have to be within the European Soviet, so they favour French and German business. They do not favour financial industries like Britain. And so out of the European Union, Britain will be free to negotiate her own deals with the rest of the world under the World Trade Organization.
They're better off. They will be better off economically out.
Absolutely. And without the huge costs, we're the second largest payer into the European Union, and they want to fine us $50 billion to get out. I mean, it's a disgrace.
What do you think's going to happen, John?
People will be much better off.
What do you think happens?
What do I think will happen or has happened?
No, not what do you want to happen, but what do you think will happen? What is the end game here? Theresa May, what does Brexit look like? What's your best analysis, knowing all the players, knowing what's happening? How does it actually end?
My fear, when you tell me that there are less than 48 votes yet, is that the British backbench members of Parliament will not have either the integrity or the courage to vote down Prime Minister May as Prime Minister, that Britain will be sucked into the Euro-Soviet and they will suffer. And this is, let's say again, the last peaceful opportunity to leave or to break free of the Euro-Soviet on a peaceful basis. So if we do get out eventually, there'll be blood on the streets, and that is so sad.
Jeez.
On the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, where we voted for freedom.
I suspect this whole Euro-Soviet thing is another word for European Union, but I'm following with you, John. I'm following.
Well, yes, because it has its own Politburo,
right.
the Commission, which are appointed, not elected.
Right.
It has a Parliament which is elected, but it doesn't give that Parliament any power, and therefore these are exactly what happened in the Soviet Union.
I followed you. I was following along, as always. Good to see you, John. John Browne.
Thank you.
We never have to know. We never have to question where John stands on an issue, that's for sure.